In a follow-up to the Shangri-La Artifacts, the sequel is An Atlantis of One. Now, this is a novel that you can read alone. You don't have to read the Shangri-La Artifact trilogy in order to understand the book. But it does flow from it. When I finished the Shangri-La Artifacts, it occurred to me that what I had done was create a ancient history, a prehistory history, as the main story, and as the contemporary side story were the struggles of Professor Mark Lichtenstein and Tony Nakamichi in trying to save the artifacts themselves from people who are trying to get them, and for Lichtenstein to get published and noticed as a famous professor. He has the same problems in this book, but in the previous novels, his wife had left him. She came back, but it's tenuous. And in this novel, she has left him again and has gone off with one of his colleagues. Ironically, the people who discover a floating artifact from what they think might be an ancient city had called the colleague with whom Lichtenstein's wife had gone off with to help them translate it and to see if it was authentic. Had to have been authentic in some way because it came up from the sea. It wasn't a current item, and it was carved in wood. So we have Mark Lichtenstein, Tony Nakamichi, who is lecturing now at the same college, and a couple of their students on a field trip, quote unquote field trip, to keep it low key, down to Florida to connect with this gentleman who discovered the floating artifact that might be from Atlantis. And when they begin to translate it, they realize that the ancient story is someone who fled Mesopotamia to go out to the New World, what we would call the New World. And they're positing that where they settled on an island could have been Atlantis. So I invert the idea of the main story being the historical story. The main story here is one of Mark Lichtenstein, Tony Nakamichi, and their interactions with both the person who discovered it, the treasure hunter who discovered it on his boat, and some Russian mobsters who want to get their hands on some gold that the treasure hunter had done beforehand. So they're running into problems. So the main story is the contemporary story, and the backstory, the sidebar story, is the historical story in which people land on this island and have to make a living for themselves without any knowledge of the society and having no government and trying to set up something that will work for them. It turns out to be that it's a story about family. And there are several families involved, one of which, ironically, is the monster of the tale. I won't go into that very much, but suffice to say there are sea creatures, there are mobsters, there are treasure hunters, there's a professor and a writer, and there are students. And it all goes for an interesting admixture. I'm using an adjective I shouldn't use myself. You should be using it if you think it's true. But I found it interesting, admixture of items which show the commonality of what people will do for their family. And Atlantis won. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks.